back to the Potting Shed, the weekly series brought to you by Reading Fringe Digital in partnership with BCA. I'm Chris Lambert, horticulturalist and lecturer here at BCA. Next week will be the final Potting Shed before the Reading Fringe Digital Festival begins. So keep sending in your questions. This week we're talking more about plant problems, wildflowers and harvesting your peas. Helen from Caversham has sent some photos of her courgettes that have a white bloom and yellowing on the leaves. Looks like you've got a case of powdery mildew, a fungal disease. And frankly, any grower of courgettes is lucky to get away without at least a few of their leaves or plants suffering from this at some point. The fungus is helped by our recent weather as the hot, dry spells dried out the soil, especially of those in pots, before then being soaked by downpours and becoming waterlogged. Courgettes are more susceptible to the fungal infection at these times, with the spores from similar plants in the surrounding area being spread on the wind before landing on the courgette's large leaves. Best practice is to keep your plants well watered when the weather is hot, as the fungus likes drier conditions. And a fine misting of water on the leaf surface can even help to stop the fungus from colonising. It is good to space your plants out and slightly away from the barriers, like the wall here, to allow for good air circulation, which the fungus hates. The fungal bloom is unsightly but often doesn't kill the plant unless the infestation gets too bad. So remove the infected leaves and preferably burn them as soon as you see them. Never compost them, as the spores will persist within it. You can treat the plants with a variety of fungicides or sulphur, but this is best done as a preventative before signs are evident. Going forward to next year, it may be an idea to look at growing cultivars that are more mildew resistant. And do ensure that you don't reuse any old compost, as chances are the fungus will be back with a vengeance thanks to this year's spores. Vicky from London has written in for some advice on wildflowers, particularly those suited to a shady area within the garden. Now, growing wildflowers is all the rage currently and is fantastic for helping to improve wildlife biodiversity, especially in more urban areas. Of course, their very name suggests that nothing could be simpler than throwing down some seeds and leaving them before seeing a resplendent meadow springing forth. Alas, this is not the case, and many need quite specific requirements that our garden soils often don't provide. You will need to work out if you have dry shade or wet shade before looking at what plants will work best here. Due to slow germination of many wildflower seeds, it's often best to buy small plug plants to dot around the area to help them to get a foothold and start to colonise. Look around your local area and see what grows in the verges and shrubberies nearby to advise what will best suit your conditions, or check out sellers online for their recommendations. Classics like bluebells and primroses would be a great addition to your garden for early on in the year, before looking to foxgloves and bellflowers to bring all the bees to the yard in the summer. It is always best to opt for the perennial plants, those that come back each and every year, to build up an established area. The exception here is foxgloves, which are biennial. They last just 2 years with flowers only in the second year, but they self-seed readily, so you should keep seeing them popping up. Planting is always best done in spring or autumn due to availability and optimum conditions. Whilst those wildflowers used to sunny sites hate fertile soil, those plants which are suited to shade are used to the richer soils in life. Clear any existing plants and weeds away first to avoid them competing with the wildflowers as they establish. If you want to use wildflower seeds, then be aware that they can be expensive and erratic in their germination. Follow the advice on the packets and always try to sow in the year of purchase to ensure viability. If you want to encourage more insects and pollinators into your garden, then the key is to have a wide range of plants that can flower across the months to provide a nectar-rich source as well as a food crop for those caterpillars and other insects that may feed specifically on those plants. Working with nature means being selfless and accepting some plant loss, for which you will be duly rewarded with nature's glory. Finally, William from Woodley has asked how they will know when their peas are ready to harvest. If you've never eaten a pea fresh from the pod, then you've missed out. They need no cooking and taste so sweet that many never make it as far as the kitchen. There are many varieties of peas available that will all ripen at different times depending on type and season. You do need to time it right, as when the plants start to yellow, the peas in the pods lose their sweetness as the sugars are turned to starch. This happens as soon as you pick them as well, so don't store them for too long. Freeze them if not eating them that day. Most peas are ready 3 weeks after flowering, The pods that are ready should still be a rich green colour and swollen to the touch. Open a pod first before fully harvesting the rest. Be prepared for variability in size as pods develop at different times and may have smaller peas while some have whoppers. Pinch the pods off whilst carefully supporting the stems to avoid damaging the whole plant. It's always best to harvest now as it is a prime time for pea moths to lay their eggs on the pods, allowing the caterpillars to bore inside and eat the peas within. Check each pod as you open to avoid getting some extra protein in your peas. That's it for this week. Thanks ever so much to everyone who's written in. As I said, next week is the final potting shed before the Reading Fringe Digital Festival opens on July 17th. So if you have a question you've been burning to ask, email it to chrislambertgardening@gmail.com. Remember to check the potting shed page on the Reading Fringe Festival website for all details, as well as a chance to see me on Catch Up. And while you're there, don't forget to check out the fabulous festival lineup and register for access to all these amazing events. Thanks, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time.